Yeah, so my name is Elam Boockvar-Klein. I'm currently pursuing a master's in urban planning here at Penn in the Weitzman School of Design. I'm concentrated in housing and community development. I previously worked in affordable housing development. I'm really interested in understanding how we can use real estate as a tool to change the trajectory of built environments in underserved urban neighborhoods. So how can we equitably redevelop parts of Philadelphia, for instance? It's kind of the core question that I'd like to address in whatever capacity my professional career allows me to. The whole team made it a really engaging experience. It's hard to make local politics and planning and community engagement feel that exciting in person, let alone online, but it really felt like, we were part of a community and that was very interactive and brought to life the processes that otherwise can feel kind of mundane and tedious, and got me excited about the work. And so subsequently I've joined the board of my civic association. When I'm in those meetings now, I reflect back on my time at CPI and just thinking about kind of the strategies of engagement and how to be inclusive in conversation and kind of decision making that we do as a board. The great thing about Philadelphia is that locals are so passionate about this city and their neighborhoods, their blocks and their homes, etc. And so, I knew that, while I would never be a local Philadelphian, I wanted to do everything I could to feel rooted in community. So joining CPI, I was really blown away by the level of involvement that various leaders, various participants in my cohort were invested in their communities. I mean, just hearing about folks who had been doing the work for 40 years in Philadelphia, and I was like, whoa. I'd been in Philly for 10 months at that point and was just humbled, honestly, to be part of that group of people doing that kind of work. And so I think about that a lot because, wherever I end up, whether that's Philly or somewhere else, I want to be somebody who is both rooted in community and showing up for community. And I think CPI really showed me how that can be done, both from a technical standpoint and also just from interpersonal engagement and seeing what other people were doing as well. So socially, it's running into people on the street where I'm out and about and showing up at events and building relationships with neighbors enough to the point that I'm familiarizing myself with people who are walking on the street. It takes a while to get to that point, but for me that's kind of a barometer of okay, I feel at home in this place, there are friendly people around me, I know where people are coming from, what their interests are, and how I can relate to that. From a technical perspective, a lot of it is just staying up to speed with what's going on locally. And CPI was really helpful in giving me the resources to know when there's a building or when there's a proposed development that has filed for a zoning permit, where I can find that information. And also part of that is just knowing politically what's going on. How can we engage with our council members, having a sense for the who's who of the city and where I can find information when I need it to make my voice heard. As I said, I joined the Passyunk Square Civic Association where I live in South Philly. That's kind of taking both of those dimensions, the social part of community and the technical RCO processes, and taking it to the next level where I'm on the planning committee, I'm showing up to zoning meetings as well. Not only do I know what's going on in the community, but I'm able to make decisions that impact what's going on in the community. So that's kind of the next step. And it's been really cool to see that. So I came back to school with the question of how and why do neighborhoods change? We know that historically some neighborhoods have been extremely disinvested through white flight, through redlining, through highway construction. Neighborhoods are malleable for the worse, then they've got to be malleable for the better. And so how do we do that in a way that's intentional and doesn't create further displacement? That was my big question going in. Like, I knew there wasn't going to be one answer or silver bullet. But I think what I have learned, case studies of developments or neighborhoods or even cities as a whole. I've been looking at Detroit in one of my classes and learning a lot about the local policies there that have enabled the rebirth of the city, the comeback story of Detroit, as they say. But just having like North Stars of like, okay, this is happening in places, it's not impossible, like let's figure out how to replicate what's going on in Detroit or what's going on in Baltimore or what's going on in our backyard, like in the Navy Yard or something. Like how can, at a larger scale, thinking about neighborhoods holistically, how can we then replicate how can I replicate that wherever I go? So I think where CPI comes in is, if I'm on the development side of things, the space that I want to be in would still be connected to community and community organizing and community engagement. A lot of developers don't really do that. But if we're thinking about equitable, intentional development, that community has to be a part of that. So a lot of developers will do what I would call like product-based development, where they say, we build this one thing and we're gonna find a market for it. What I would like to do is what I would call place-based development as opposed to product-based development, which is like, okay, you engage with the community and you figure out like what collectively is needed in this place, in this neighborhood, and then whatever that is, we build. The developer I worked for over the summer, they had never built a school before, but that was identified as a need, and they turned an old industrial building into a school. Like that's the kind of thing that I want to do, like hyper responsive to community. And so I think that's where CPI comes in, is understanding how to best engage and the formal and informal, I guess, processes to do that. And when you get the process right, then the outcome is that much more impactful. CPI is a lot of things. The Citizens Planning Institute enables community members, like you don't even have to already be a quote-unquote leader in your community, you're just kind of an engaged, concerned resident. Equips folks with the tools to effectuate the change that they want to see in their neighborhood. Organizing and policy making is more critical than ever, and so CPI is always important, but especially important now in connecting folks with the resources that our city has, but doesn't necessarily disseminate in an accessible, equitable way. CPI is the entity that does that for the city, for all the agencies. I felt more equipped to get involved in my neighborhood post CPI, and I'm certain that other folks felt similarly. Like it's not a prerequisite to be that involved, and it kind of demystifies the whole process. If you're concerned about your neighborhood not having access to healthy food, like CPI is a resource when it comes to advocating to your council member or connecting with real estate developers to try to get community benefits agreement to put in food retail in a project they're already doing or something like that. There's a whole number of issues that you can apply the skills that you learn in CPI to, and I think that's what's so valuable about it, is it's so transferable. No matter like what you care about, where you are, every neighborhood, everywhere has a challenge. No neighborhood is perfect. To have the resources that you need to address those challenges is so important.